If you're thinking about buying a home in Hamilton right now, you might want to think twice about that because for most buyers, right now is actually a terrible time to be jumping into the market. Now, I know that might sound a little weird coming from a realtor because I literally help people buy homes for a living, but I'd rather tell you the truth than help you make a decision that could potentially cost you thousands of dollars and that you'll end up potentially regretting for the rest of your life. So in this video, I'll be breaking down what's happening in Hamilton's market right now, who should be buying right now, and who is probably better off waiting until things get a little better. My name is LoPresti. I'm a real estate agent in Hamilton, Ontario, and I work predominantly with first-time buyers. Now, if you're watching this, you're probably seeing quite a mix of signals regarding Hamilton's market. You're probably hearing that prices have dropped, listings are sitting on the market for a long time, sellers are more flexible, and that now is the perfect time to be jumping in. But then you go and book a showing and the place is $70,000 overpriced and the seller will not budge at all on that price, and it's causing you to second guess everything that you've been hearing. The truth is the market is not equal across the board. It depends on not only different regions in Hamilton, but also depends on the individual buyers and the individual sellers. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking it down for you so that you can make sense of things. And if you have any questions at any point, feel free to reach out or drop a comment below. Let's get into it. So first, let's start with who should be buying right now, or at least who it makes sense for. The first thing to know if you are ready to buy right now is if you've been pre-approved for a mortgage. If you're financially prepared, you have your down payment ready, and you actually have that pre-approval letter from your mortgage lender or from your bank, then you're in a strong position to start looking. Now, the reason for that is because, like I said before, there is less inventory. Sellers are more flexible, but you have to make sure that you are fully aware of your specific financial situation. Otherwise, you end up in a situation where you overpay or your monthly expenses exceed what you're actually comfortable with. Last month, we had one of the lowest months for sales since all the way back to 2010, which is bad if you're selling, but it's great for a buyer because there's tons of listings out there, like I said, which means that the sellers don't really have too many options when it comes to finding buyers for their home. Some of them might be overpriced, sure, but if there's 100 listings and 20 of them are overpriced, the other 80 are still going to be pretty viable options for you. The second reason to know if you are in a good position to buy right now is if you're thinking of buying long term. Generally, my recommendation to people is to buy real estate for the long term, all else being equal, because you don't know what's going to happen in the market in the short term, but on a long enough time frame, it does tend to trend upwards. We might see some short-term fluctuations. You might buy something today and then next year it goes down by 10%. That's not the end of the world if you were buying long-term, because in 10, 15, 20 plus years, it will go back up in value. So I think the absolute minimum that you should be looking at when you're buying a home to live in yourself is 3 years minimum. Now, if you're doing something like house hacking, you can get a little bit more flexible with this if you're gonna plan to rent it out potentially if you have to move after that. But ideally, rule of thumb, 3 to 5 years is a good benchmark for the minimum time frame that you want to be living in the house before you end up selling it or moving on or doing anything else. Now, the reason I say that is because you can't ever possibly time the market bottom perfectly. You might get lucky and time it, you might not. And hindsight's always 20/20. We always look back at, say, we look at COVID prices, or we look back to 2008 and we say, oh, I really wish I bought right at this point, but you can never see that until it's past us. So you're better off buying something that makes sense today, that you can afford to live in today, and don't worry about any short-term price fluctuations. Just focus on building it over time, building up some equity, living in it for the long term. You'll be fine. Now, the third thing is something I just alluded to, is if you're planning on house hacking, which is where you rent out a portion of your primary residence to help cover the cost of living in that home. So let's say, for example, you buy a duplex, which has 2 units that are fully separate. You live in one of the units, you rent out the other unit. The rent that you're making from the second unit is helping you to cover the cost of living in the first one. Now, hypothetically, if you had to move out, let's say before that 3-year time frame, like I mentioned before, you can rent out the unit that you were living in, and you can now have a cash flowing investment property. Since the rental market is doing fairly well right now and rents are fairly high, you can leverage that by turning your home into an asset. So if any of those three things make sense for you, you're pre-approved, you're buying long-term, or you're thinking of house hacking, right now is a great time because the chances of you finding a deal that are great for you is very, very high. So if you are thinking of buying right now, I have put together a free resource that should make it a little bit easier for you to figure out what you actually need to do. So one of the things I mentioned was pre-approval, but there's a whole bunch of other steps leading up to that final day when you get the keys, and it's all in this guide that I put together. So if you're interested in that, check out the link in the description. All right, now let's go into who should wait to buy. So the first thing that should indicate you might want to pump the brakes is if you're stretching to afford that house. This is why pre-approval is really important, regardless of if you think you're 100% ready to buy now or in the future, because it will show you what your monthly payments will look like and you can create your budget around that. And now let's say you get that number and you find out that the max amount that you can afford is not what you're actually comfortable to be paying every single month. Then that's a good indicator that it might be best to wait, maybe focus on increasing your income, increasing your down payment, building up your savings, anything that you need to do. But it's good to have that number in front of you so then you can plan accordingly. And don't let somebody convince you that you're wasting money on renting if you're not in a good position to buy a house. You can end up losing more money in the long term. Let's say you buy something, you're bleeding every single month, and then you end up having to sell the home in a year or two, and you lose tons of money on the closing costs. Maybe the market went down as well. That's why I recommend buying for the long term. If that number that you're going to be paying every single month is not something you'd be comfortable paying for the next 3 to 5 years plus, then it's best to wait a little bit, pad your savings, focus on increasing your income, that sort of thing. And don't be ashamed if during this period you have to rent or stay with your parents or figure out some other accommodation so that you can make ends meet. All right, the second reason you should probably pump the brakes when buying a home is if you're buying based on FOMO. If you're buying because you're seeing that your friends are buying houses or you're seeing headlines that things are about to start going back up and you're worried about missing the boat, that's probably a bad sign that you should be getting into the marketplace. If that's your only reason for starting the search, you're probably not going to be in a good position because, again, you're trying to time the market, which is not something I ever recommend you do. You should buy because the timing is right for you, not based on what is right in the market right now. And the third person who should probably think twice about buying is the person who's trying to chase a unicorn. Just because the market is ideal for buyers right now doesn't mean that you're going to be finding a unicorn, which is basically a home that's super, super cheap, but is also perfect. It has every possible renovation that you could want. Like let's say you're paying $300,000 for a 5,000 square foot mansion with a huge lot like that. It's not going to happen. Just because the market is better right now doesn't mean that you can be unrealistic with your expectations. Now, I know that was a bit of an exaggeration, but you get my point. Use this opportunity that we have in the market to be strategic and to find something that will actually work for your lifestyle today at a reasonable, fair market value that you are comfortable paying. Don't be going out trying to find a needle in a haystack because you're just going to get burnt out, and that's how you end up finding something that you don't actually like. You have to be reasonable with your expectations. What I always recommend is you come up with a list of your needs, things that you absolutely have to have. So 3 bedrooms, certain proximity to work, that sort of thing. And then you separate those from your wants. That might be things like a backyard pool, a sauna in the basement, that sort of stuff. Stuff that you would like to have, they'd be nice, but you don't absolutely have to have them, and they can be sacrificed for the greater good if need be. So yes, while there are deals out there, you have to make sure that you are actually ready. You're not stretching your budget just to try to get into the market based on FOMO, based on some fear, based on headlines and anything like that. You have to make sure that you're actually ready. You find something that will make sense for your budget today and that you are acting strategically. Now, if this is feeling overwhelming, that's totally okay. That's normal. As a first-time buyer, that's completely normal. So that's what I'm here for. If you have any questions at all, you can book a free call with me. My info is down in the description. I would love to help you out. Or you can download the free First-Time Homebuyer Survival Guide. It's also down in the description. All right, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I think it's this side. There should be a button with my face on it over here. I'm not in my usual office today, so it's throwing me off. Button over here to press with my face on it to subscribe to the channel. Then there should be a video over here with some more Hamilton real estate tips. So check that out if you're interested. All right, thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.